fun, but it just is, especially when you arrive at the Virtual Alexandria, that state of mind where East meets West. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And for those of you watching on video, either in the tubes or Rockfin or Rumble and some of the other platforms, yes, that was the Virtual Alexandria. I have recently added the module actually it's a little bit different, but I added Active Imagination by Jung, an excellent video that you should watch. And as I've mentioned before, if you join the Virtual Alexandria Academy, you get all 3 Gnosis replays. So you get an extra 30 hours of exclusive high-octane Gnosis not found anywhere else for the most part. And I'm excited too because our guest today, I actually met at the last Gnosis. It was truly a pleasure hanging out with him and talking to him. He presented on Hecate, and it was a mind-blowing, engaging, and very ethereal presentation. So check it out. And of course, it does help keep the lights of the pleroma on. And that guest today is coming for a new trilogy. So we're very excited about this as autumn is here and the season of the witch is arriving and the spirits are coming back and being active. And that is David Block. David, good to see you here, even though, of course, it was much better just hanging out in the flesh, in the meat sack over at the Theosophical Society.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. Thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, and a pleasure to be on the conference, of course, as well. It was a wonderful time to meet very interesting people.
Indeed, it was.
Nice to be with you as well, Vance.
Yes, Vance, welcome. How you doing, Vance?
I'm fine. Looking forward to hearing about my former digs of Atlantis. You know, that was one of my incarnations.
I thought you were going to say your former squeeze, Ishtar, but I guess.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, never know.
Yeah, she dumped me, though. You know. What can I say?
Yeah, damn you, Hercules or Adonis or all those California blonde.
Gave her a bad crystal, you know. It had a crack in it.
Awesome. Well, good to see everybody already in the chats room. I hope everybody's having a good Freya day. Good to see Graham. Good to see Violet. Good to see Christine and everybody else. And yes, you definitely will enjoy it. Miss Sunshine Valerie. Good to see you too. Yes. Afternoon where you are. It's afternoon here over in Central. Mr. Mark Jefferson, how you doing? So I don't have any much housekeeping. Next week, as no surprise, we will have more Jung. We're going to have Jungian themes on a lot of very cool pieces of content, including my favorite anime, really my favorite probably Gnostic expressions out there, and that's Neon Genesis. But we'll also have Gnostic themes in Twin Peaks and other works. So we got we keep getting Jungian. There must be a force in the air because, as I mentioned in an email, I had like 2 Philip K. Dick shows lined up and they had to be rescheduled or they were canceled. So there's some force that's pushing away one of our saints and making sure we focus on Jung these days. But I ain't going to argue with the gods because like Ishtar, they will dump you hard if you mess with them. So yeah, we'll just get started. And at the end, if you have any questions, please super chat them so that we can get to them. And or if you have any complaints, whatever you want to do. But it does help, again, keep the show going. I can't do it without you. So, David, why don't we just jump into it and get started, shall we?
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's start.
All right, Let's get the things over here. Here we are.
Yeah. So this is a new series of three parts. And the first one is this one. It's Atlantis, Ishtar, and humanity's fall. And in part 2, the title is The New Testament for a New Human. And in part 3, I will decode the Space Odyssey 2001. And can be interesting after the Shining decoding, go back to Kubrick. And of course, there's a reason why this 3 parts is in the series. So if you really want to understand the Space Odyssey 2001, it's good, of course, to see the first part. There is a reason why I put this together. I hope I will wrap it up in a understandable way, but I will do the best I can. And sometimes I will have to take some detours.
Right.
And but in this part is in 13 parts, and the first part, and the word was made flesh, intro, as within, so without, the garden, Cain and Abel, Tiamat and stargates, Atlantis, Cronus and Zeus, the grid of the gods, Ishtar, the Phoenicians, under Jolly Roger, Dead Reckoning, and the last part, and the word was made flesh, outro. And this one will be a little bit dark, but for me, there are a lot of positive things, and I want to point that out, and I will hammer that home as well, because I don't want everything to be dark. There are positive message in this. People tend to forget the good part and focus on the dark stuff. For me, there is a good outcome of all of this. And I think Stanley Kubrick showed a positive ending of Space Odyssey 2001. And that is where I will wrap this up. So keep that in mind. And we will start with part 2, as within, so without. So one thing that is very important to understand, because I have done other series, or the Watchers and the Boatman and so on, is that I've talked a lot about the manifestation in matter with the tarot cards and so on. For example, the tower, I always talked about it as a physical phenomena, as a tower in matter. But the most important part is within us. And this concept is very hard for us humans to understand, that we are really the creator of it all. So what's happened inside of us will also have a physical manifestation without us. And we have this very famous saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. But I think many people miss the point, what they're talking about, because it's so hard to wrap your mind around it. But it is really in the Kybalion and the Hermetic principles, we understand that the universe is mental, and that's very true. Our matter is made up of light, vibration, and sound, the 7 colors. And but it also happens within us. So what you do, if you do metaphysical work, if you aim at Sirius, and you aim at Sirius, you want to go there in the metaphysical, and that's your aim. Something outside of you do the same, but with matter. It seems to always be a reflection. Everything is inside you. That is the message. Nothing is outside of you. Even if you soul travel and you manage to leave your body, your soul, your spark, your light source, doesn't mean that you travel out there. It is more true that you travel inside, because everything is inside of you. But there is an elite that can't soul travel like you do. Therefore, they try to do the same, but with technology. Therefore, they are a manifestation outside of you. If you manage to soul travel to the moon, you will discover that there are buildings there. Someone has been there and put some stuff there. Buildings and so on. As above, so below. If there's stuff on the moon, if there's stuff on Earth, you will also find something on the moon. Or some technology on Earth aimed at the moon. We try to connect the moon. and draw down the stars, so to speak, and energies that to have an effect on matter through the metaphysical and through technology on different planets in our solar system. This is a very strange phenomenon, and it always comes to that what you can do from within your spirit, someone else have done in matter through technology. I can't explain it all. It's just bizarre. I know, very strange. But I hope I can make it clearer with this presentation. We have from Sumer, we have the cuneiform. They have the phenomena of Ansuki. Ansuki is cuneiform, and it means heaven and earth. And Su is the spirit, or you in between the heaven and the earth. You are between these forces. But heaven also means metaphysical. Understand that you are between matter and the metaphysical, if you still have your soul, your spark. Now you can't really lose your spirit. You can't really lose your soul, not even the least. But your soul can become so dormant within you, and you can be so convinced that you have lost your soul, that they ain't there. What your mind cannot perceive or imagine is not there. Where your mind goes, you goes. Your imagination, what can be possible, is the first step towards the metaphysical. If you're convinced that you're an animal, a material animal, without soul, that is what you get, because your mind takes you there. Now you have convinced yourself that you don't have a soul. And without a soul, you cannot take the step into the metaphysical. Now you're trapped. Not because you have lost the soul, but because you have convinced yourself that you don't have a soul. Be very careful with what you believe in, because that will take you on your fate will be determined by it. So let's go back to the garden. And I have talked about this before, but now we'll be talking about it on a different level. I will, and some of this stuff you all know about. Everybody knows 2 trees in the Garden of Eden: the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge, and so on.
Right.
Everybody knows that, but I have to bring it out still. And of course, the tree of knowledge is the cliphotic tree, the dark tree, and the tree of life is the tree of light. And we are taught to believe that this Garden of Eden is a place of wonder, is a paradise, and that's a good place to be in. But it can really be a trap. We humans we need something to fight against or struggle against. That is when we evolve. If nothing happens, we become very lazy, laid back, don't do anything. It's very dangerous to have too good life. I'm sorry to say that, but if you're very, very satisfied with your life, you ain't struggled to get anything more than that. If you're satisfied with your house, your money, your job, nothing wrong to be happy, but that's not the main goal here. If you're only satisfied with it and you don't strive for anything more, then you're trapped in your own matter, in your own paradise. And I don't wish anyone bad luck or that they're unhappy,
Yeah.
but that's just how we are, the humanity is. Well, in this garden, you have the snake, of course. And the snake tempted Eve to eat the fruit because she would know evil or get knowledge of good and evil and gain insights. And the snake there's a lot of discussion. Who is this snake? Well, it is Azazel. Azazel is the snake, and he tempted Eve to eat this fruit. But there is a reason for it. It's not out of evil. According to the Watchers, from their perspective, humanity have come to a dead end. To be in a paradise where nothing happens, we become stale and nothing evolves from there. It's really a trap. Trap in matter, but in metaphysical paradise as in matter. Still a metaphysical place, but it's similar as to be satisfied in matter. In spiritual terms, it means that you don't evolve. And of course, many have speculated that maybe this is the construction of the demiurge and Enlil and so on. And there is some truth to that. And I think you can say that. Very interesting thing with Azazel is that his sigil is like Saturn's sigil. Saturn and Azazel have the same sigil. But this sigil of Azazel is not his sigil. It is really more the Saturn sigil. Azazel's sigil look a little bit different. Why does Azazel's sigil look like Saturn's sigil? What's going on here? Well, there are a couple of things we have to understand with this Eve temptation. Azazel could be seen as a mask of Lucifer or as a persona of Lucifer. Azazel's sigil is the sigil of Saturn. Azazel have said or stated that he is trapped in Mimas, and Mimas is one of Saturn's moon. Lucifer is chained by Zeus on Caucasus mountain. Lucifer is bound. Lucifer is held back. Lucifer is restrained. That is exactly what Azazel have said that he is in one of Saturn's moon. And therefore, I think a misunderstanding have come about that attribute Saturn's sigil to Azazel, when in fact that sigil is Saturn's sigil. And here we can see a couple of things comes together. The theme that Prometheus was chained, Azazel's statement that he is trapped in Mimas, and the fact that Azazel can be seen as a mask of Lucifer or persona of Lucifer. I will come back to this. This is very important for our situation. When Eve ate of this fruit, the fall of man happened. But this fall shouldn't be seen as something negative, but a necessity. It is not good or evil. It is how we human work. And you can take it to a very dark explanation and say that the demiurge trapped human there. You can have a little bit kinder analyze and say that humanity have come to a certain spiritual level, but didn't understand how to proceed. And to be in the light and feel good makes you think that you are one with the Creator, when in fact you are not even close. And if you believe that, that's your way of thinking, that becomes the truth. It's exactly the same with the New Agers. They say, I'm one with the Creator, I'm one with the light, when you know where they are far from it, but you can't tell them that. That's what they believe. That's their mindset. They are trapped. Then a collective fall has to occur, and Azazel makes sure that the fall happened. So we can go back into darkness and start to go back with the knowledge of the light, with the knowledge and a new method how to go forward in evolution to avoid this stalemate. Now, more things happen in this Garden of Eden and this this fall, of course, and we have to talk about Cain and Abel. And this story, once again, is very misunderstood, because we only hear the Christian version of it. And of course, in the Christian version, Cain is the evil one. Of course he is. And Abel is the good one. Where the original myth comes from Sumer. But in the Old Testament, it takes the form of this Cain and Abel myth. And we learn that Abel and Cain were farmers. Now you have to understand that farmers is under Enlil rule, because Enlil line is the farmer gods, like Enlil and Ninurta. They are farmer gods. The Enki line are shepherds. The Enki line is shepherds, shepherd gods. So you have shepherd versus farmers. Now we know that this Garden of Eden has something to do with Enlil and farming. Because Abel and Cain were farmers. And Abel and Cain were supposed to sacrifice something to Enlil, the farmer god. And Abel sacrificed an animal, and Cain sacrificed wheat. And Enlil was pissed off by Cain, and he wanted to expel him. Now it says that Cain was jealous of Abel. Well, that should be understood as a very humane thing. When we are born and we realize that we are very different from our fellow man. I talk about all of you who listen. You understand that why can't I go to school? Why can't I sit still and just do what I'm supposed to do and follow order? Why am I always don't want to follow different, question things? Why do I want to walk my own way? Why ain't I a follower? Why can't I get a job 9 to 5 and be happy about it? And just shut up, get my money, have some children and die? No, something is nagging you. But when you're a kid, when you're young, it's also a jealous thing. You're jealous of people who just can go along. You are different. That's the reason why Cain was jealous of Abel. Why do I feel the urge to go against the god Enlil? Why can't I just go along? When you become older, you stop this jealousy and you realize that it's very good to be different. That's my strength. I have an individuality. I will have a hard life in this social machine because society, yes. But it's a good thing. I don't want to be like the others. I don't want to have an original work. Nothing wrong with work, right? But it has to be something more to life than that. Something else is taking my attention. When Cain kills Abel, it could be understood in more than one way, as always. These stories could be understood on very many different levels. But you can view Abel as the part in humanity that want to obey and just want to go along and want to bend its knees, want to adhere to authority. When Cain slay Abel, Cain cut out the part of him that wanted to obey or bend his knees to the God Enlil. He started to take out the part in him that told him to obey and to be obedient and not think for himself. And all of you had slayed many Abels within you. And you start to walk your own way, different from the mainstream humans. You have your own ideas, what you want to do. And for the most part, they are metaphysical. And now you become a walker with Cain in the metaphysical, or towards the metaphysical. For the punishment, Enlil expelled Cain. Now that wasn't a bad thing. That was planned according to the Watchers, because they didn't want Cain in paradise. Nothing happened in paradise. Humanity had come to stand still, and someone had to leave. This is similar to the fall, right? Something need to happen, otherwise humanity would come to a standstill. And Cain was expelled from the paradise, and that was the plan from the beginning. The mark of Cain is put on his forehead. Cain's symbol is a skull and crossbow. Now, a lot of skulls and bones with Cain. And of course, that has a lot of symbology. When you draw the death card, for example, you die and you are reborn into a new version of yourself. A better, a more true version of yourself. You have realized something new within you, probably something to do with spirit. You walk further into the metaphysical realm with your spirit. You have become a Cain, a walker in the metaphysical. He walks the land, he travels the sea. He travels in the metaphysical. He is a boatman. He is a necromancer. He is not a farmer. Now, of course, this Cain method and left-hand path can be taken too far. And there's always, you have to draw your own line and stand by it. And of course, I'm going to talk about that today. What has happened and why? In part 5, we will talk about Tiamat and the stargates. So I want to take you into technology for a while now. And I will talk about this Tiamat, an ancient god, a great old one, the old dragon. But what is this story about? Some say Tiamat and Krypton is the same planet, and this is a planet who existed between Mars and Jupiter and became the asteroid belt when it exploded. There is also speculation that it was a water planet. And we have this mythology about Superman, right? These superheroes are always into some esoteric stuff. Not always, but most of it. Some deeper meaning behind the cartoons. And Superman have an S on his chest. Some speculate that it is serpent. I think it is serpent from Sirius. And now I will speculate a little bit further. This cannot be proved. Not yet, at least. And of course, this is speculation. But I think that in very old times, Sirius had a natural connection to two of our planets and suns in our solar system. And that was Tiamat and our sun. That was a natural stargate for us to travel to Sirius in the metaphysical, through yourself, through your spark, through your soul. During this time, you had a natural connection with the spirits from Sirius. But something happened. In the Sumerian mythology and in Babylonian mythology, you have this war between Marduk and Tiamat, or the Anunnaki gods and the great old ones. And it says that Marduk came in contact with Tiamat through his orbit, and that this orbit came from outside our solar planet from beginning. Marduk's planet came into our solar system and was headed for a collision with Tiamat. And we call this Marduk's planet, so-called Nibiru. And Nibiru destroys Tiamat through a collision with the planet. Marduk's satellite, or wind, came in contact with the planet. The asteroid belt is created after the collision, after the destruction. And Tiamat was defeated. It also says that Marduk gets his strength from his father Enki, who is also his Poseidon and Neptune. And he came with the wind, with an asteroid attached to him, or satellite. And Tiamat was destroyed. And in that collision, he defeated the old ones and took his place in our solar system. And he took Jupiter as his planet in the end. So we have this asteroid belt, and the asteroid belt is between, of course, between Jupiter and Mars. And it's a ring. And of course you can see it if you have a good good equipment. I think you can call this ring the crown of Lucifer if you want to. Because I think that they try to uphold the stargate, the natural stargate towards Sirius, by taking one of the asteroids from this asteroid belt and move it to where our moon is now, or it is our moon. Why? Because they still have that resonance from Tiamat, who had the connection to Sirius, natural connection, resonated in this asteroid belt. They took a big chunk of this asteroid belt, an asteroid, and moved it to create our moon. And our moon became a gate, or a stargate towards Sirius. But they needed to put some technology on the moon for it to work. And I will come back to it why. But there are more things happening here, right? But they tried to uphold the stargate who was destroyed. The natural stargate for the human race, to have a natural connection with the spirits from Sirius. And the spirits from Sirius is called the oneness. And they are the one who teach us the art of civilization and esoteric methods and so on. If that connection is destroyed, then we don't have this natural connection and knowledge from these forces or spirits. We also know that the moon is responsible for ebb and flow. Therefore, it has a connection to water. It's very strange, a lot of phenomena with this moon of ours that cannot be explained in natural terms. The size of it, the dark side, a lot of things going on here. I will not explain it, talk about it more than this, because it's going to be very long anyway. But we all know that there are a lot of strange phenomena around this moon of ours. So let us go to Atlantis in part 6. Atlantis is such a enigma, and we don't really know exactly what happened. But as a left-hand path practitioner, I start to understand a couple of things, but we will never understand it fully, probably. What has been said about it is that it ended about 10,000 BC. The flood was a memory loss and loss of soul. Now you can't really lose your soul, but the soul was so dormant in humanity that it was almost gone. A war was raging, and this war was between the Titans and the Anunnaki gods or the Olympians. And it was a war, and it becomes more and more clear for me because I got more and more information from it. Therefore, for me, it's clear that a huge war was raging during this time between these forces. No, of course, it was played out by humans in matter. The war was fought between humans and different faction of believers in different gods. And we know that the Titans, the Watchers, was one of those factions. For example, Belial is a Watcher, but Belial's name is also Kingu, and Kingu was a Titan, a champion of Tiamat. Therefore, we know that Belial also is a Titan and a Watcher. And Belial has stated that he was the one who let Fenrir loose. And we know that Fenrir was a dark wolf, not very nice energy, spirit. So why did Belial do it? For the same reason for the Garden of Eden. Humanity were very close to end up under a prison for your soul and mind, where we couldn't escape it, or we ended up there for thousands upon thousands of years. So fall and destruction had to happen. But it was Enlil who brought the flood upon us in the end. And we have discussed this many times before. Water is, of course, Mem, the Hebrew letter Mem. So it's not like he tried to drown humanity, the totality of humanity. It was a big flood, but not a planetary flood. But he's talking about destruction of humanity. And humanity is not humanity if the soul is gone or very dormant. A human is a person with a body and a soul. Enlil wanted to destroy humanity because humanity made too much noise. Meaning too much technology, too much soul travel, too much fun. Now we also know that Fenrir, according to the Asal belief, swallowed the sun. And I think it's a symbol act of shutting down the sun or blotted out the sun. Could be done through technology and esoteric method. But I think the sun was very close to go blank, so to speak. So in the end of Atlantis period, we have this darkness and memory loss. The grid is destroyed, the grid I talked about before. Tunnels and the underworld. The elite. I call them elite because they still have control of a huge part of humanity. Therefore, they are some kind of elite for me. if we don't want to call them elite, we have to do away with them. They fled into tunnels and into the underworld to survive this apocalypse. And they took technology with them because everything wasn't broken, everything wasn't lost. A lot of stuff they could save. And I'm sure there was a huge struggle between this so-called elite and what they wanted to do with the technology, who gets what, how to, what technology should we save, and so on. It's not like these people are in perfect harmony with each other, right? A lot of conflict during this period of time. For example, when we're talking about the period from 10,000 BC to 5,000 BC, and I ask people what happened during this time, no one has a clue. It's like a dark blank of nothingness. And it doesn't seem to find very cool structures like the pyramids, because I think if you're into esoteric lore, we believe that the pyramids are at least 12,000 years old, right? But no similar structure can be found between 12,000 BC and 5,000 BC. I'm sure that we can dig up some, and there are stuff under the surface for sure. But it's very strange, isn't it? As soon as they find some structure, it is dated to 10,000 BC or earlier. Why not 7,000 BC? What happened there? What happened? Now we can speculate, but it's all impossible to have an answer. But I think the elite were busy to building back the grid they had lost through technology that was damaged, and the infrastructure was damaged. They couldn't reproduce the technology, but they could try to fix the technology they saved. But there's a huge difference to have factories and stuff that can build stuff and be stuck with technology that you need to take care of, maintain. And I think it was a struggle between these forces, this elite, what they want to do and how they want to kickstart society, if they want to do it, or how. Should we share this technology with the surviving humanity, or should we use it against them to make them do our bidding this time around? A very interesting mythology is, of course, Mahabharata, the Indian epic myth. And I saw in a lecture, we talked about this Mahabharata, and it was a person. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I will find it again, and I will bring it up again. But he talked about this Mahabharata, and they describing the stars in a certain way in the Mahabharata. So he tried to trace it back to what time are they talking about in Mahabharata. I tried to turn back the skies where they were. And he came to the conclusion that he thought it was between 5,000 BC and 10,000 BC. Could it be, this is just a question, I have no answer to this, could it be that the Mahabharata happened between 10,000 BC and 5,000 BC, a huge battle where they tried to use the technology they had saved, different factions, different people with different goals, and this epic battle take place, and that they have taken that away from us because they don't want us to understand what happened. History, they want to control history, whatever it takes. Atlantis is a myth. Mahabharata is a myth because they need you to believe that you're an animal that evolved without soul. And that's how they can control you. If you believe that something else has gone on in the future, you can become empowered by it. If I tell you you have been around at the period of Atlantis and you were maybe a very powerful esoteric priest with a lot of knowledge, and with soul, and that your soul traveled back then the game is up. They had to convince you that you're a piece of shit and you should work and die, and that's it. History can prove them wrong, and they don't like that. They will stick to it, whatever it takes. So let's talk about this Greek mythology now, and Cronus and Zeus. What's going on here? And I know I've talked about this before, but now I want to shift perspective to as within. It doesn't mean that what I talked about before is false. It's only mean that now we're talking about as within and not as without. We're focusing less on the physical, flashy stuff now. So, here's the myth. Cronus swallows his children. Zeus fools him. He gives him a stone. Zeus is the human esoteric elite. Inerta Cronus swallows his soul. The intellect and technology of the elite remains. Zeus is the part of humanity who lost their soul during the period of Atlantis. Enlil drowned humanity in memory. In the end of Atlantis, a human esoteric elite survives through technology and intellect. The soul is destroyed, swallowed. The soul cannot really be destroyed. The knowledge remains, no memory loss. And I think they managed to go around this with technology. The elite has to rely on technology and esoteric method based on an external source. The soul is lost. They control the astral plane through technology and through some esoteric method, but they are stuck in the astral and in matter. They can't go further than that. Then you need a soul, or you can hope for technology, because hope is the last thing that escapes humanity. So you can hope for technology, but I don't think you can. Prometheus or Prometheus. Prometheus is a spark in darkness. Prometheus Lucifer is part of humanity. The part of humanity with the soul intact. The soul is dormant but not lost. The memory is lost but not the soul. Prometheus is a spark that can ignite. The elite worship Prometheus bound. The human soul restrained, under control. The human soul under examine with technology. For example, as Caesar bound in Mimas. And this is what the elite are acting out today with the technology. They use it against us. They use it to examine us. They have lost something. I don't think this is anything new. I think this started after the period of Atlantis. And as Caesar stated, the Nephilim rise up to fight against men without soul. The soulless men without creativity and imagination. Prometheus is chained by Zeus on Caucasus mountain. An eagle takes his liver over and over again. Prometheus is an immortal and cannot die. Zeus wants to know what Prometheus knows. The liver is also a symbol for to know divination through the liver, seat of the emotions, and the soul. The elite want to know about the future. They want to understand what the soul is, and they want what emotions is. They are stuck in matter, and we have the key for them. But they don't understand it, what it is, the spark, the soul. And of course, this is the theme in Dark City. This is the Dark City talks about.
Yeah.
The soul is what they search for. So in part 8, the grid of flesh. So what is this grid? And this is a lot of misunderstandings in this. I try to explain it many times. I will try to do it again with a little bit different twist. Well, the demiurgic prison is of course not the totality of the universe, but a very small, minute part of it. But sad to say, we are part of that minute place. So the planets in our solar system is part of that grid. Saturn, remember, Saturn swallowed the soul of the elite, trapped them in matter. They are stuck in matter. And Saturn is the last planet in our solar system that you have to overcome to open up gateways towards the zodiac and the fixed stars, and to exit this matrix. To exit the matrix, you have to go through Saturn. So the zodiac and the fixed stars is really the boundaries of this demiurgic prison. And I say prison, but it sounds very negative, but there are good things here as well, I promise. The creator, the light, the source of everything is outside of the matrix grid. And therefore, you have a choice. If you are in the right-hand path, your aim can be to join the creator, the light, exit the matrix, exit reincarnation, and never come back again. And you are gone. The good part is that they cannot stop you if you really, really want it. But they will make it very, very, very hard. Through technology, and the most important part is not technology, but it is a war over your mind. Because what you can't imagine cannot be come to fruition. You have to imagine it. And if the demiurge fool humanity to wait for Jesus, or that you are an animal in matter, you will never start this journey. It's gone, doesn't exist for you. You can't imagine that it can be something else. If you don't understand reincarnation, you think you have only one life and that you should indulge yourself as much as possible before the end. That it won't take you very far. You have to think in terms of reincarnations. This walk with Cain can take a while. Think of reincarnations. The elite thinks in terms of reincarnations because their goal cannot be achieved through one reincarnation, but many reincarnations. You have to think like them, but with a different goal, of course. A different outcome, but it cannot be achieved through one reincarnation, or cannot, maybe, I don't know. If you work very hard, who knows? So we have this fixed star Algol. Algol, this fixed star have connection to, for the most part, 2 planets, or 1 sun, 1 planet, or 2 suns. But depending on how you view it. Oh, one presentation disappeared. Algol has an influence of Saturn and Jupiter. So Algol is the power behind the throne. And I think Enlil should, if Enlil has a planet or a fixed star or a star, it should be Algol, because he is the ruler behind the throne. But Saturn, Ninurta, rules in his stead, because the ancient Anunnaki gods was removed from our solar planet, solar system. But Enlil's influence could be used through Algol. And this Algol influence is in turn Saturn and Jupiter. So what is this? It is probably some kind of a energy grid where the planets and the fixed stars have a connection with each other through energy, light and sound. And some planets have stronger connection than others and influence each other more. And of course, we come to astrology and stuff like that. We find Algol in the Solabusca deck, the tarot deck, the oldest complete tarot deck. It's from 1470 or something like that. It was ordered by a very rich family, the Este. In one of those cards, in the Major Arcana, card number 13, the death card, of course. But in this card, you see Perseus, and the Perseus has stabbed a Gorgon head in the eye. But there are more things happening here. Now remember, this can be understood on many different levels. And on one level, you can talk about Orpheus, or it's a symbol of Orpheus, the Gorgon's head, the head. And Orpheus was a musician. I will come to that in more detail. You can also see it as Gorgon, Medusa's head. And Medusa is attributed to Algol. The star Algol is attributed to Medusa. The head of the Gorgon is in Algol. And it is Perseus who cut the head off Medusa and take it down to matter and use the head as baneful magic against his enemy and turn them to stone. Because if you see Medusa in the face, you will be turned to stone. Perseus is the son of Zeus, and now we come back to Zeus. And Zeus gave him his armor that Perseus used to defeat this Medusa and cut the head of Medusa. We have this same theme in Batman, where Ra's al Ghul is the enemy, is destruction, is chaos. So what they are talking about is to keep chaos at bay and use the enemy's weapon against the enemy or against humanity. It's a flag, and on the flag it says, driven by fate, that he's bound by a pattern. You can also see the color scheme is purple and red, and the Algol star is very close to his head in the sky. The star is Algol, and Algol is used in baneful magic to enhance attack magic against others, or enhance the effect of magic it can have on others. To use Medusa's head. And also, of course, it's about drugs and so on. And Amon Hillman is talking about that stuff. Now we'll come to that, but in a different way. Orpheus, the music of Orpheus was so powerful that all the world and underworld could be swayed by it. It is thought that his lyre was given to him by Apollo, who ruled over music. He was able to play his music so powerfully that he was able to prevent the Argonauts from hearing the evil siren's song. And this evil siren song is very important to remember here. And music is very often a big thing, a big symbology behind music. And music is, of course, frequencies. And I remember I was in a school where my teacher taught me that before, in the big churches, they have this organ. They could play the tune so loud and vibrate it so loud that the soul was shaking loose from the audience, and they had an out-of-body experience. And I think music was used to do similar thing as that, as a method. But it's very important that you understand that you're more than only your body. And that's a good way to do it. As long as you believe you're only your body, you are stuck. Now let's talk about Sirius. The frequency of Sirius is probably 33. And if you come in tune with the 33 frequency, you start to get in tune with the spirits from Sirius. And you have become a boatman, an astral boatman, a traveler. But it takes quite much to come that far. A lot of method and work has to be done, but it can be done. And as I said before, Tiamat was connected to Sirius. That is what I think, what I believe, and the sun. But because of the destruction of Tiamat, and they created the moon out of one of Tiamat's asteroids from the belt, the gate, the stargate, became from our sun, Saturn, and the moon. Saturn and the moon with technology. Therefore, I'm pretty sure that they have some interesting technology on the moon. I'm also pretty sure that they have technology on Saturn's moons. For example, Mimas or Iaptus. The sun is probably a stargate and could be seen as a black hole. All this technology has to be aimed at Sirius to open up the stargates through the moon, through Saturn, and then the sun. The gods that are attributed to Sirius are very interesting. They have one god called Dagon, and Dagon is an amphibious creature or amphibious god living in water. And this is very important because I've talked about Tiamat as a water planet, and it seems that the gods attributed to Sirius is also connected to water in some kind. Another god attributed to Sirius is Enki. And Enki's name in Greek mythology was Poseidon, and Poseidon is the god of water. And in Egypt, Ptah. So yet again, you have water attributed to the gods towards aimed at Sirius or attributed to Sirius. And Tiamat was considered to be a water planet yet again. Ptah was Enki's name in Egypt, when Ptah created the pyramids, and I've talked about this before, but a huge component in the pyramid was water, to charge water. And I believe they charge water with plasma. And plasma, I think the gods are plasma. To draw down the gods from the heavens into matter. And Ptah made it possible through technology, an esoteric method, to draw down the gods, communicate with spirits through technology and esoteric method. And I've talked about this many times before, but it's worth mentioning it again. We come, of course, to the Tower of Babel moment. What is happening here? It is 1850 BC in Babylon, and the Mardukites have taken over the city, and they worship Marduk. And they start to build this tower. They want to reach the heavens. And this is Etemen Anki, Kadinge Raki of Babylon, or the Tower of Babylon, the Ziggurat of Babylon. And ziggurat are 7-stepped pyramids, but nonetheless, they are pyramids. And we can see the cosmic influence are Mars and Saturn, of course. Sadly, it was destroyed by Nimrod. And there are many misunderstandings of this character, Nimrod. This Mardukite elite priest class was on their way to succeed, to recreate the technology, to open up the stargates again, aimed at, I think, Saturn, the moon, and our sun. And from Marduk's point of view, it was quite urgent to do so, because according to me, what we see in the Greek mythology, this is further back in time, right? We are not there yet. But Marduk he's a demigod. The forces of Enlil, Ninurta, Saturn starts to work on him as well. He starts to be heavy into matter in a fallen state or a fallen angel state. He's a demigod, therefore he shares a lot of our traits, the human traits, limits, but he is more powerful as a god, of course, half god, demigod. The urgency was he created the tower because he wanted to reconnect to his father Enki, and Enki's star is Sirius, and wants to open up the stargates again, and the technology is there on the moon, Saturn's rings, and the aim was for our sun. And the black sun behind our sun, Sirius, or the sun behind the sun, 666. And Darth is also into this, but Darth is not a physical material planet or sun. It is something, a mental state within you. It is a hidden Sephiroth. Hidden Sephira. This Nimrod is Ninurta. And Ninurta works for Enlil. And Nimrod infiltrate the priest class of Marduk and destroy this building from within. Meaning they don't want these forces to reconnect to heaven. Enlil have already told humanity, no, too much noise, too much soul traveling, I don't want you here, please go away. I will destroy you again. He's no fan of humanity, let's say like that.
Doesn't even like our music, huh?
Not even the music. Not even Elvis.
Yeah, well, it was probably Taylor Swift that made him permanently change his mind. So.
Yeah, probably. Some shitty music. Anyway, the destruction was complete, and he fractured the Babylon Tower and the language. And remember, language is a form of technology. Mem is language, Mem is water, Mem is nations. And he destroyed it and separated us and separated the human race. He didn't want us to come together and try to do something. The elite ends up under Saturn rule. Nimrod, Nergal destroyed the Stargate, the Tower of Babylon. pushing the elite further down into matter. Many of them becomes worshipper of Saturn, Enlil. Shift side to Jehovah's son, Ninurta, the demiurge. A blend between Ninurta and Marduk worshippers take form. Saturn, the one who rules matter. Remember, Saturn is considered the star or planet that makes matter into solid, or make the light dense. The loss of souls, Atlantis time, and now technology makes them shift focus. The loss of the souls and Atlantis time, during the Atlantis time, and now technology makes them shift focus. And now they want to take humanity with them into matter. So this is really a fall further down into matter. And also the feeling of loss and giving up for now. And we all know how it is. How to try to achieve something, a big goal, just to see it in ruin. So let's focus on the boatman now. What is a boatman? And I've talked about this in previous series, but I want to remind you. A boatman is a person who travels towards Sirius with his own body, temple. Your temple is your alchemical temple. Turn it from lead into gold, and you will change your frequencies and become in tune with Sirius and with the spirits from Sirius once. In other words, you can start to communicate with these spirits from Sirius, because your body starts to become in tune with the right frequencies with these spirits. A lot of method need to be done, but it can be done. And they are waiting for you. It's not like they don't want you, but these forces, the elite, have made it very hard for us, but it can be done. The technology and everything they have manipulate us with is a burden for us, of course, but you can overcome it. Nothing is impossible here. Now, for me, I have decided as a boatman, I want to return here. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to source, to the light. But I don't want to go into matter without spirit or without the ability or knowledge to soul travel. Therefore, I will not be trapped in matter, but I can enjoy both. I can be in matter and leave whenever I want into the metaphysical and soul travel and take back everything we have lost and to rediscover everything we have lost after Atlantis. There are a lot of realms, metaphysical realms, waiting for us to return and to explore. Is I think it's a very rewarding thing. Remember, this ain't a prison if you can leave whenever you want into the metaphysical.
That is true.
And there are a lot of things that is very good in matter. Remember, everything is not dark and bad here. We can watch the sunset. We can have a fire going, have friends, having a good time. If you leave and go back to the source, you will never experience this again. Now, I understand that some people have a bad time and suffer. And there are a lot of suffering right now. And that has to change, of course. We have to do away with this elite and take over and change this place to our image, not theirs, of course. Now, these amphibious creatures, I want to talk about them because they start to pile up through myth and so on. And I also want to remind you again, the Tiamat was a water planet. The gods and spirits from Sirius is amphibious in turn. So you have Dagon, the god, is amphibious. The great old ones with the Cthulhu and all of those is amphibious. Oneness is amphibious. Octopus is amphibious. Sirens are amphibious, and mermaids are amphibious. Now the sirens we have to take in brackets, but we will come back to them. And the very interesting thing is when people talk about these whales and dolphins and so on, it seems to come from a different world. They seems to not belong here. I don't know. I just want to bring it up. Maybe there is something to it. Maybe they ain't from here from the beginning. Maybe they come from another planet. Who knows? Speculation from my part. So let's shift focus to Ishtar in part 9. Ishtar has many names in myth and legend, and here is some of them. Inanna, Isis, Aphrodite, Venus, Astarte, Metis, and Brigit. And when others, the Christian take hold, she get a bad rap and was called Astoreth or Astaroth. These are a few names, but there are many, many more, and they call her the goddess with 1,000 names. So this is just the start of it. But we can leave it at that because it will take a very long time. But these names most people recognize or they know of. And of course her planet is Venus. The transfer of the arch of civilization from Eridu to Erech. So this is in the Sumerian mythology and Babylonian mythology, and this is about Ishtar. Seeking greater abundance and power for her city, Inanna traveled to Eridu, the residence of Enki, in pursuit of secret knowledge. Her charm, coupled with the looseness that comes with heavy drinking, won over Enki, who gave up some 100 decrees and treasure in his compromised state. Well, we all know about that, guys, so we can leave it at that. These are then loaded onto her boat of heaven and transported back to Erech, and Erech is her city-state, of course, meaning she takes hold of some ancient technology from Atlantis and take them to her city from Eridu, from Enki. Or knowledge, esoteric method. Knowledge about esoteric method. And take it to her city. So we can see there is a struggle even among the gods over this technology. And knowledge, esoteric knowledge. And Ishtar have a lover, Tammuz or Damuzi. And we learn about the descent of the goddess Ishtar into the lower world. So the romantic patina for Inanna Ishtar is toned by the Romeo and Juliet motif in the relationship with her consort, Damuzi, Sumerian, the god shepherd. The name Damuzi means the good shepherd. This is important, right? Because Damuzi comes from Enki line. Damuzi Tammuz is actually the youngest son of Enki. Her intended spouse was, however, Marduk. But Marduk and Ishtar didn't like each other. And according to me, Marduk is Zeus. Same god, different name. You can say that Zeus is also Enlil, because Zeus in that state in the Greek mythology had ended up under the forces of Enlil, and the forces started to work on him or manipulate him or change him, because he had ended up under Enlil, Jupiter, and Saturn forces, and he failed to build a tower to open up the skies. And he is a demigod. I want to point that out again. The reason why he became the gods of the gods in Olympian time was because he defeated Tiamat and he got that title. Not because he was the oldest god or the wisest god, but because he defeated Tiamat. So let's enter the underworld with Ishtar. Descent of the goddess Ishtar into the lower world. To the land of no return, the land of darkness, Ishtar, the daughter of sin, to the house of shadows, the dwelling of Irkalla, to the house without exit, for him who enters therein, to the road whence there is no turning, to the house without light, for him who enters therein. The place where dust is their nourishment, clay their food, they have no light, in darkness they dwell. Doesn't sound like a very nice place.
Not at all. Not at all.
Gatekeepers, open the gate that I may enter. This is Ishtar saying. If thou opens not the gate to let me enter, I will break the door, I will wrench the lock, I will smash the door posts, I will force the doors, I will bring up the dead to eat the living. With the festival garment deck him, that he may play on the flute of lapis lazuli. Sorry, this is another part of this poem because I cannot take it all in. But that is the first part of it, where she enters the underworld and she is very angry. And one of the reasons behind it is because Tamusi have ended up in the underworld. So she's there to save him. But there are much more going on here, and that is what I want to focus more on. We skip some and we continue with the poem. With the festival garment deck him, that he may play on the flute of lapis lazuli. The Votarius may shear his liver. And this is important because here you see shear his liver is his spirit. And we know that Zeus chained Prometheus to take his liver, and the eagle took his liver every day. Meaning, among other things, spirit. Belili bared the lament of her brother. She dropped her treasure. She scattered the precious stone before her. O my only brother, do not let me perish. On the day when Tammuz plays for me on the flute of lapis lazuli, playing it for me with the porphyr ring, together with him play ye for me, ye weepers and lamenting women, that the dead may rise up and inhale the incense. So what is going on here? There is Ishtar is a witch, or she used witchcraft and comes very close to Cain in many respects. And there is a method you can learn if you walk with Cain, and that is to contact the spirits of the dead. And by releasing them, you can gain their knowledge, because they have been in this state for a very long time. You gain their knowledge, and for that they get released. The releasing comes with the knowledge they have gained to you. And I think Ishtar was there to gain power and knowledge through the release of the spirits trapped in this underworld. And among them was Tamusi. But it was not the main reason she was there. Maybe one of the reasons. In realms between worlds, many souls remain trapped by false fate. Rites or passage of paternal solar cults of the lie are but dead ends, closed gateways from restructured half-rites stolen from ancient cultures. So here again, it's very important what you believe in or what you choose to believe in. If you believe in a hell and that you will end up in hell, then your mind will manifest that hell for you and you will end up in the underworld. That's one way you can end up there. Your mind are very powerful. You have to feed it with good thoughts and intent. What you believe in becomes manifested. As within, so without. And some of the soul in this underworld, well, surely people have chosen the wrong path or wrong belief. And it's also about turning on the chakra system to allow this method to work. For it to work, you need to work with the chakra and the kundalini, and you have to work with other methods, of course, but that's a start of it. And of course, these trapped souls are released to go back into the reincarnation circle again, and they will come back. And if you remember in The Lord of the Ring, Aragorn goes into an underworld and release the ghosts. And for their service, he released them. And the ghosts help Aragorn to defeat Sauron's army in Minas Tirith. And there are a lot of skulls in this, this tunnel, in this underworld. He enters with his sword. Another very interesting episode with Ishtar is the Pyramid Wars. And this is very interesting because of what's happening today, among other things. But the Pyramid Wars is very important happening. It is between Marduk and Ishtar. When Marduk retreats to Egypt to regain supremacy of his own Mardukite tradition, Ishtar sets her sight on making the powers there her own as well. The fighting that erupts between brothers may be of similar theme to what is alluded in the farmer gods versus shepherd gods. So here you can see there is a war between this faction, the farmer gods versus the shepherds. In the end, Marduk, Tamusi is killed, and Ishtar is pissed off, of course, and managed to trap Marduk in the pyramid. And it sounds like myth and fairy tale, but the fact is, if Marduk is half god and for the most part made up of plasma, and if we allow the probability that the pyramids can take down plasma into water and make them manifest there, then Marduk becomes trapped in the pyramid. Therefore, for me, this is not myth. It is technology and the truth about the gods. And I think you will see in the near future that there are plasmas around the pyramids, not necessarily gods, because all plasma is not God, but gods are made up of plasma. So let's go to the Phoenician and part 10. I hope you're with me still. Yes.
We are indeed. We are indeed.
Great. So let's go to the Phoenician, because now we are talking about seafaring people. And boatmen. The Phoenicians are famous, of course, for the purple dye. They're famous seafarers, and they have been around a long time, long time, like 1500 BC. And the power started dwindling with the Roman Empire and the wars with the Roman Empire. But that was really like 300 BC. So we're talking about a huge chunk of time where they mastered the sea, and they were the traders. And purple was a dye, and it was a royal color because it was very expensive to produce this dye. Came from some sea snails, if I remember correctly. It was very costly. So you had to be very rich or royal to wear purple. And this purple we will see a lot in the Solabusca deck. Purple is also one color. Saturn's color is, among other things, purple, but also Thoth, the hidden Sephira, purple. And the purple Thoth Sephira, or Cliffa, is in your throat. In the chakra system, it is the throat chakra. And it is about speech, and also speech towards yourself, not only to others, to have a honest internal dialogue with yourself, who you are and what you want to go and how to manage to go there. Not lying to yourself. The honesty. Purple is a very interesting color, and I think Phoenician had a lot of influence on this color pattern. Of course, we can talk about the Phoenician, and this is a period of 1,200 years, and a lot of things happened during that time. I'm sure they traded both drugs, kids, other goods, and many of them became, or some of them became pirates. And we come to Nebuchadnezzar II and to Babylon again. But this is much closer in history than the tower incident. This is really 1,250. 1,250 years later. Sorry. So it's a long period of time. And the reason why I tell you that is because people have a hard time to wrap their mind how long of a long history Babylon had. We are talking about thousands of years. A lot of things happened there. And this is much later than the tower incident, where we have Nebuchadnezzar II on the throne. And Nebuchadnezzar II want to have a Mordecaiite revival. And he want to rebuild the tower in another place than Babylon, but still the same idea behind it. We can see the color scheme here. It's purple. Saturn, Thoth, Cliffords. He's sitting at the table and his crown is off. And this is really the last card in the Major Arcana on Solabusca deck. The card is number 21. And Nebuchadnezzar, he's the famous king who take the Jewish people as prisoners from Jerusalem and bring them back to Babylon. And of course, the book of Daniel is all about this episode. The famous book of Daniel. So what's going on here? The book of Daniel Daniel is probably a worshipper of Enlil. So it's a clash between Nebuchadnezzar's god Marduk and Daniel's god Enlil. And they compete who is the most powerful god or the best god or wherever. But over time, Daniel really shifts towards the Nebuchadnezzar god Marduk. And some of the Jewish people learn the art of banking in Babylon. And Daniel was probably a eunuch, a castrated man who helped Nebuchadnezzar with children, or to transport children, or use children in method, esoteric method. In return, they get the knowledge of banking from Nebuchadnezzar II and Babylon. We can also see that this Nebuchadnezzar is the first card in the Solabusca deck. He is the fool. He is the fool in a fallen state. And he's trying to play some bagpipe, a noisy instrument to play like noisy tones. In the book of Daniel, they say that Enlil is angered with Nebuchadnezzar. Therefore, he is expelled because he refused to worship Enlil or bow down his knees to Enlil. But what really goes on is probably that he have gone crazy from drugs and use of children and so on to produce drugs. And he has ended up in a fallen state because it takes a toll on you. This method, this esoteric method with drugs, enhancing your experience with rituals and so on, can really go sour. And if you're half mad before, you will not get better by it with this method.
No.
And that the Jewish people is released later on by Cyrus the Great, so-called Cyrus the Great. And I think there's a reason for it. And I will talk a little bit about that in the second part, because this will be too long if I talk about Cyrus the Great as well. But this Nebuchadnezzar was a very big king, and he ruled many years in Babylon for a long period of time. He became very old. The problem was his successor. His successor was not a Mordecite. And therefore the Mordecite priest class had problems because they lost their privilege, their status. One more famous thing in the book of Daniel is, of course, the statue. And this statue, most people think it is about the evolution, and that the head of gold is Babylon and silver is Persia. Cyrus the Great start this empire, and then you go down to the Greek and then Roman Empire. And I think there is some to it. Of course, there are many things. Once again, this symbology goes on many levels. But I think, and many think with me, that the Torah was written 300 BC, between 300 and 200 BC. Then this have already happened. So it's very easy to put in stuff, the devolution, if you already know the outcome. You can write a story about 300 years earlier, and then you can, of course, be the best prophet you want because you know the outcome. But this is important, and it will be important in the second part. So remember this statue and the devolution. Another character, very interesting character during this time, is of course Alexander. And we have been taught that Alexander was Alexander the Great, He was a great general and a conqueror and an empire builder. All these empire builders you should be very worried about them. There are a lot of things going on there. Who back them up with gold? Who back them up? Why can they buy the soldiers' army? How can they raise this army? Where does the gold come from? Of course, Babylon, some of it. Babylon banksters found them for a reason. An empire is good to have if you want to make trade with different goods, among other things, kids. It's good if you have a banking and you can have one banking class printing coin in many countries. Then you become much richer, much faster, and you can start to put the infrastructure in place again in a much faster pace. You need money, you need slaves, you need people. Alexander was one of them, and Alexander was not so great. He was, among other things, a pirate and being accused of child trafficker. Go figures. And a pirate that trafficked kids, because kids was a very valuable thing and also used in different esoteric methods with drugs and body fluids. Yeah, very dark stuff. And you can see here, Alexander the Great, not so great, color is purple. And the Solabusca, I will talk more about the Solabusca, but you can see Alexander is a huge figure in the Solabusca tarot deck. He is the king of swords. Alexander, not so great, died at 33 years of age. In where? In Babylon, of course. He was a pirate. He trafficked children. Claimed to be the son of Zeus, or Zeus Ammon, right? Who financed him? What was the purpose behind the Library of Alexandria? Esoteric knowledge. Remember that this libraries is not a bad thing. When they do stuff, we benefit of them as well. What they tried to do with these libraries was to take in a lot of different knowledge, esoteric knowledge around the empire, to collect it and to understand it again. What happened during Atlantis time? What knowledge have we lost? What can we piece together? Let's invite people from all corners of the empire and let us piece this puzzle together. Again, that's not a bad thing. Nothing is black and white here. Not even the technology is a bad thing, because we need technology as well. When they build their infrastructure together, we can connect. We start to understand what's going on. We wake up as well.
Very true.
So this Solabusca deck comes from Venice, for example, or that surrounding from the family de Este. And the Venetian was, of course, the new seafaring traders. They were banksters. They had esoteric knowledge, and Columbus came from this milieu. And Columbus is deemed to discover America, which is a complete lie, of course. He was there to claim the land, but he didn't discover it. It was discovered long before. But Columbus was there to claim America under the Venetian pirates or the Venetian oligarchy, to put the flag on the land. And then we come to part 11. and Under Jolly Roger. Now we are going into a more recent pirate phenomena. I call this the dark boatman archetype. The dark boatman archetype travels the sea, the waters, the mem. The goal is metaphysical, to find Sirius. That's not only the reason they want to find realms and other places as well, but I'm sure Sirius is a big thing in it. So let's turn to the sirens. Sirens. Siren in Greek mythology, a creature half bird and half woman who lured sailors to destruction by the sweetness of her song. Both women and men couldn't be sirens from the beginning. Tritons were the counterpart, and they were men. Sirens are beautiful women of the sea who sing songs that hypnotize or lure and trick men into shipwrecking their boats on rocky shores because they follow the irresistible song. Odysseus instructs his crew to tie him to the mast, telling them to ignore whatever he may say while under the sway of the siren's song. And we have this famous painting on a vase. And they were like bird creatures from the beginning, right? They could fly, and they attacked sailors. But they changed into mermaids later on. They have taken various forms. But who are the sirens? On the surface, this story seems to be a cautionary tale about the influence beautiful women can have over men. This, however, is not what the story is about. Cicero tells us that the true meaning of the story in De Finibus. It was not the sweetness of the voices or the novelty and diversity of the songs, but the profession of knowledge that used to attract the passing voyagers. It was the passion of learning that kept men rooted to the sirens' rocky shores. In other words, the sirens had knowledge, and not any knowledge, but esoteric knowledge. And the seamen wanted, the pirates wanted this knowledge, to gain the knowledge of the sirens.
Fascinating. I love this. So basically, as always, women were telling men we're wrong and we had to throw ourselves into the water. That's one way to.
Exactly.
Am I going to get in trouble for this, Vance?
Oh, definitely. You're mansplaining.
I am mansplaining. And, sorry, I apologize in advance. Don't cancel me, or cancel me, but be nice about it.
Yeah. The sirens were castrated boys, eunuchs. The boys' high pitch was used in different rituals. When they didn't have use for them anymore, or they became old and broken, they marooned them. The boys are the sirens, calling on the sailors to drown them or to let them on board again, like the Stockholm Syndrome. They had knowledge of the metaphysical because they were used in such rituals. Some ended up in the underworld. They became like the perpetrator, and they could not grow up. They were castrated, the lost boys. And we all know, sadly, that many people who are abused as kids become abusers themselves.
Right.
That's the sad truth to this. Not all, but it's a very dark truth. So we have the story of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. And of course, Peter Pan is a siren. And he has these lost boys. And of course, Disney jump on this shit right away, right? So Peter Pan, a captain. Peter Pan's tendency to murder his friends once they begin to age serve as the true basis for the bad blood between Hook and himself, and that the pirate's crew is made up of others former lost boys who help Hook resist Pan's magic. In this version, Hook is revealed to be an old friend of Peter's and the first lost boy, meaning taking over after the perpetrator. And of course, Peter Pan fight this Captain Hook in Disney's Peter Pan. And of course, it's based on a book. But if you understand the truth behind it, it's a very dark tale. And it should not come as a surprise that Disney caught up on this. And of course, Disney had this shit club, 33 club.
Their private club, yeah.
The private super crap club. And you see the number 33 here again. That's no coincidence, right?
No. I mean, Walt Disney was a Freemason, so...
Yeah, exactly. A little bit nicer tale. This is not a tale, because I've experienced this on my own, but I have to give some background to it. Captain Nemo. Homer Odyssey, when Odyssey encounters a monstrous cyclops, Polyhemus, in the course of his wandering, Polyhemus asks Odysseus his name, and Odysseus replies that his name, it is Autis, and Autis is no one, translated into Latin as Nemo. Like Captain Nemo, Odysseus wanders the seas in exile. So Nemo means no one, and it's an old concept. It's nothing new, but it is reused in this tale later on with Captain Nemo and the underworld traveling, if I remember correctly. The Cyclops is huge, and they have one eye, and it's in the third eye. And when the maroon kids or kids get lost and wander into caves and so on, and you have huge men hunting them, they appear as giants who want to use and abuse them for the body fluids to have an effect on the third eye, to awaken body fluids in their own body through the kids. They use their body fluids for their own transformation as drugs. And we know that DMT have an effect on the third eye or the pineal gland, and start to pump and awaken. And I think this Cyclops come from the fact that these boys are small and these men are big for them. They view them as giants, and the giants of old. And the method is to awaken, among other things, the pineal gland, and allow the pineal gland to produce DMT to end up in a metaphysical state, or sense the spiritual. The scent and vision of Captain Nemo. This happened only 2 days ago, where I had people come over to my temple, and I have a course here. And I talk about method, how they can work with themselves and achieve results. And I talked a lot about this Nemo, all this dark stuff with the boatman, or dark boatman archetype and all of that. And I talked for almost 3 hours. They wanted to stay for longer.
Wow.
They thought this was very interesting. And for the most part, we do 2-hour sessions. But we ended up with 3 hours, and I went to bed. And I went back and forth to lucid dreaming, and awakened state. When I felt a smell, took it into my nose, and I felt a smell of an old captain. There was oil, tar, not oil, but tar, tobacco, old coat, very distinct smell. And I reacted right away. This is a captain. I feel a captain. And it felt he was very close to me. But I didn't answer with fear. I tried to relax. So I always teach people, if they want to experience things, you have to relax in this state. So instead of reacting fear, I draw down the smell into my lung 3 times and start to meditate on it. And I saw the astrals start to appear, and the vision changed, and I felt I was going down into the sea, closer and closer to. I thought it was a beehive, but it was a squid. The tentacles and the suckers, and I thought it was Cthulhu to begin with. And I was traveling towards Cthulhu, this giant squid. And then I saw this image when I put this presentation together, and it was connected to sirens and Nemo and sound, music, smell, and everything just came together. Because I didn't know, did I see what I saw? How can I understand this? Can I make any sense of it? I really tried to be there as long as I could, but I was awakened when I was quite close to this octopus. I thought it was Cthulhu. But this was what I saw, but no beautiful ladies. But it is a good, because I talked about the sirens, I talked about this Nemo, and here I had the vision of all of this come together in this very powerful experience of mine. And of course, we have to talk about skull and bones. And we come to Yale and the Skull and Bones Esoteric Organization, and the number is 322. And the number 322 is, if you take it down or reduce it or count on it, it becomes 66 for the most part. There are many different numbers here, but 66 is the most prevalent number. And 66 is a reference to the Qliphothic tree and to Thoth. And Thoth is purple, and then you come back to the purple dye. Mm-hmm. And some say that it is 23 degrees between the bones, the crossed bones, and 23 degrees is a reference to Sirius. So here you have a connection to Thagirion, the gold room in The Shining, to Sirius, and to the Qliphothic tree, and to the Hebrew letter Mem, water memory, astral traveling, and Cain. All come together. I don't want to accuse them of anything, but I don't trust these people at all. In a very strange movie called I, Pet Goat 2, they show George reading this book, My Pet Goat, in this classroom upside down. And for me, sad to say, I view George as a siren who have been used. And this is what they are talking about in that movie, iPad Go 2. And of course, Stanley Kubrick is talking about all of this in his movie. And we find these people in the gold room or in the underworld where they are trapped. And this is the banking elite. This is the traffickers. This is the esoteric elite who ended up in the underworld, trapped, lost their soul, waiting for someone to save them, maybe. The gold room or the underworld where the souls are trapped, the pirates, the banksters who use and abuse children have lost their souls. No goddess will save them. No music will enter their grave of gold. Pirates can dig for gold, but they will never find it. Real gold is you, it is your soul. Watch Dark City. And also the movie The Lost Boys is of course a very interesting one, with vampires and shit sucking people dry from their body fluids, the blood. And if you see the movie again, you will see a lot of new things I've talked about here today. And I know it is very dark stuff I've talked about today, but also I have a very good positive things to say as well. And we come to the last part 12, Dead Reckoning. Who are these people? Why? How can they control us? Why do they always seem to come on top? Where does their power lay? Well, Dead Reckoning is a term they use for different things, of course, but in this instance, the way I use it is this in combination with this presentation. Dead Reckoning, to find a human to take over before your soul leaves, to cheat reincarnation. There is a method. If you have become very powerful in your methods, when your body breaks down and your soul releases, you can push away another soul in another body and take over that kid or baby. Then you cheat the reincarnation circle. And if you do it with method and within the same family as you do it as a ritual, the family then can teach you how to take over and how to remember what you did in previous life, and they can continue on. Therefore, the soul of this elite is not completely gone, but they need a method, and they probably need Saturn to help them, or Ninurta. And some of these people have sacrificed their soul to Ninurta, to Saturn, to gain knowledge of Saturn, or Gnosis from Saturn. The Saturnian Gnosis of matter and method and how to operate in matter to come in top of things. What they do, some of them, is to ask Ninurta, Saturn, who have their soul, to allow them to take that soul down into a new body. But they go through Saturn to ask Saturn, their god, for permission to use their soul trapped in Saturn. Therefore, they are trapped within Saturn in matter. That's the price they have to pay for the Gnosis. But they have also method and favors that make them very effective when they come to rule in matter through their god Saturn. These people, it has taken a toll on them, because everything has a price, and they start to lose their mind, really. And we can see some madness in these people for sure. And remember Nebuchadnezzar II. One problem with this is that if you allow this reincarnation, or if you hijack the reincarnation, you start to really lose your soul. You think it is lost because you're programmed that Saturn has my soul. I have sacrificed my soul. That becomes your reality. They have trapped themselves mentally. You don't have that burden. You have your soul, you have the spirit, you have the spark.
Right.
They rule as long as they can convince you that you don't have a soul, or that you don't have any power to overcome their prison in matter. When you do, and when you start to walk, you have to understand and have focus on many reincarnation, what your goal is, because you have to work. They come back with memory, or gain the memory very fast. You have to gain it, and you forget about your previous life. When your body dies or breaks down, it is like a boatman moment. A boatman moment is where you lose your memory and you have to start all over. But the metaphysical work you have done in previous life is stored within your DNA, or within you, in your soul. That remains when you come back, and you will always come back to the work sooner or later. Therefore, you have to work for many reincarnations, and you have to be very focused on what you want to achieve. They have an advantage, but you have the soul. Therefore, you can do everything they can do through your own alchemical temple, your body. Yeah, I hope I made some sense here today. I hope you liked it. I know it's dark. I know it's a long one. But it is important that we know the game, I think. And this is what I have found out through my own research. But we have to it is a difference between method and theory. Theory is sometimes speculation. Method, it is what we experience when we work on ourselves. I've tried to put together my experience through method with theory.
No, it was a great presentation. I mean, I wrote so many notes that I need to go back to and look at that, but great insights on the sirens, Cain and Abel. So much. It was really good. And it will definitely make a difference. But why don't we get and thank you very much, David. Your what you bring there is always amazing, and you have to bring the dark into the light, or like you said, how can we fight it? How can we dissipate it? Unless repressing it hasn't worked for thousands of years for humanity. So that's why we have to go into the dark and face it honestly. So Vince, you want to bring up any super chats for us?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of them. Let's take care of the people that just brought super chats without questions first. Chester.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chester. The Mysterious M.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, 50
Good name.
Krugerrands.
Good name. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and actually he did have a question. So we'll start with his question. I'll come back to it. Maz, 10 pounds.
Thank you very much.
And Benjamin Ochoa
Mm-hmm.
with the question. Let's start with his question. Since is Saturn outside the matrix or grid in theory, in your theory?
No, but it is a portal to the outside. But you have to work with Saturn, and Saturn is still inside the matrix grid. but it is the last node you have to overcome or open to get access to the matrix outside. Now, when we are talking about Saturn, it's a good question as well, because we are not talking about the physical planets, but the force behind these planets. And the force behind the planets can be hijacked or tweaked or twisted, heightened up, or used against us. So it is not Saturn, our planet itself, that are bad, right? And this matrix is also a matrix of opportunity. Don't see it necessarily as a bad thing all the way. We can take over this matrix and make it into our image.
Okay. And Mr. Miyagi wants to know, is Fenrir past or future, or is it a repeating cycle?
Yeah, it can become a repeating cycle. I think it's a destruction tool. I don't think they will use the same method this time around. And some believe that our matrix, this matrix, is the second last matrix, and the next one is the last one. And I don't think they will use that kind of a force or technology to destroy it this time around. I fear for fire this time around. Fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and be done with it. Which is
Love it.
Yeah. Wants to know, what do you think about the Gnostic scriptures in regards to the gods Sabaoth, Cain, and Abel in the garden under the creator God, how Sabaoth placed his throne above his father, and Sethian ties? Now, that's a big one, and goes back to the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't read the Gnostic scripture that much, so I don't want to answer that really. But I think a lot of things have been misled and misunderstood. I think sometimes you make the myth harder to understand than it has to be. I know that there are a lot of good information and knowledge in the Gnostic scriptures, and don't get me wrong. But sometimes they make things more complicated than they have to. Set is, of course, an interesting character in Left Hand Path. Set is bound the series and so on. So it's it's a different take on it, but
yeah, the Gnostics making something complicated never would happen. And there are many variations. I mean, for example, the snake is usually mostly Sophia or Jesus. It's a messenger, with one exception, the secret book of John. They say anything in the garden is bad. There is nothing good in the garden. They're just, and then Cain and Abel has variations, but usually they're the demonic children of the demiurge sexually assaulting Eve, and only Seth, the third son, is the one that's pure. He's the pure human. So but there are variations, but in a lot of ways they do parallel your work, David. But again, like you said, it's such a hodgepodge that the Gnostics do, and their psychedelic takes and Lovecraftian ideas, so yeah. So
we have a last minute one from another super chat from Benjamin. If Saturn isn't out of the matrix, what is? What's out there, David?
Outside of the grid. What is it outside? Yeah, it's a good question, and this I can only speculate here. Sometimes I think that we have the power to manifest. I know we have the power to manifest the materiality. And I wonder if what's outside the matrix can be matter in potentiality, that it is not manifested and cannot be manifested without us. So we have to go outside the matrix to manifest a new possibility. But yet again, I think a lot of our experience is bound up by the metaphysical, with the spiritual. Therefore, it is not, let's say, if you can take a rocket or a UFO in technology and you travel outside of the zodiac and the fixed stars, then we make that matter in potentiality into matter, and we start to render the outside or create the outside through our traveling. Therefore, I think the stars you see outside of the zodiac is only matter in potentiality. I don't think it is a solid object. I don't think it is a planet as such.
Interesting. Glad you brought up UFOs, because I had one of my own, which is, and this might be a subject where you could integrate this into future presentations, because
No.
you've done a grand unified theory of mythology, right? you've
Thank you,
seen all
Miles.
the connections, yeah. So what is the connection possibly between all these representations of mythology of these metaphysically connected creatures and the various aliens of modern mythology, the grays and the tall whites and the Nordics and all that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a very long answer, I'm afraid. I
Another
think
presentation on the way.
Yeah.
But I can say some stuff, things is that Nordic can be our cousins, and they have existed long before us. Something that the Watcher have stated is that there were a humankind before us, our cousins, and they were much more powerful than we are. And they became too powerful too fast. And they gained technology without wisdom, but with intellect. Therefore, they were very close to destroy planets and suns and so on. Therefore, our evolution has to go slower than theirs. We need the wisdom go together with our intellect. Otherwise, we can self-destruct and be a problem for the solar system. And that's also a problem, because then other spirits can use and abuse us when we slowly evolve. But I think it has to be like that if we are going to go up in a higher purpose. The gray, I think, can be an android. I don't think it's a living being. I think it's an android, and maybe some speculate that maybe you can do some esoteric method to draw down spirits into the android machine, and then it animates them. I'm very skeptical to the alien paradigm as it is today. I think a lot of it is nonsense. I think a lot of it comes from MK Ultra program, putting false memories in people's mind, because they don't want us to know that the technology is theirs. They have it, and they should share it with us, and we should know about it so we can protect ourselves from it and tell them that you ain't worthy of this technology.
The elites again, right?
Yeah, I think it is like I'm certain that all of these people don't get along. I certain it's different strands and ideas and so on. But when we come to technology and banking, they've gained so much money in combination with esoteric method. I've talked about some of it today, that they can really control us through the technology, and we can overcome it. I think most of the aliens we see is spirits, and they can take physical form when the time is right. Doesn't mean that they look like us exactly, but like an angel or a fairy or whatever. So I'm very skeptical to the alien paradigm, such as in physical form. I think we should have some photos of them. By now, everyone has mobile phones. However, I have a lot of photos of plasma balls, flicking balls, through my friends Samuel and Drew and a man named Jeff. There are a lot of things going on there.
I agree with you with the plasma, yeah.
It's very interesting, and that's positive. We can learn how to contact this plasma, these angels, whatever it is, and communicate with them. And I think some of them are dragons, and some are fallen angels and gods, different beings. But I'm very reluctant to call like aliens in physical form, because I think we play into this elite's hands if they create a false alien scenario, whatever. I don't know, but I speculate here. But I'm very reluctant to do it. And
Yeah, it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, right? He seemed like an
Yeah.
alien until
Yeah.
he's exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A great
Yeah, and
line.
I have to say thank you to Stephen, my friend from England, the gentleman, and he has shared a lot of his insights with me, and we have talked back and forth and come up with some great stuff. And it's a wonderful thing. This technology is not, when they put this infrastructure together, we have the opportunity to meet as well and talk and share experience. And people like us, it's not our neighbors for the most part. We need to communicate over countries and to really find each other and share with each other. And that's the reason why we start to see through the agenda.
Well said indeed. Well, awesome. Yeah, great super chats. Appreciate the support. There were some great conversations and insights in the chat room. Also worth to look back at. And it's this has been great. So for sure we will have David on in October in the season of the witch for the second part, which should be just as electric or plasmatic, I might say, instead of electric. But it's been great, but we probably should wrap it up because we're almost at 2.5 hours.
Yeah, very long.
That's a record.
I have 2 slides left. I can do it very fast. If it is okay.
To. Yeah. Here, go ahead.
I just want to say that the second part is the New Testament for a new human, and it's about a lot of it is about the New Testament and the myth of Jesus, the character, and what it's all about.
Wow, can't wait for that one.
And the last part, of course, part 3, Decoding a Space Odyssey 2001, and a new rebirth of humanity and how it's going to end.
Can't wait. It's going to be a good one. Awesome. Well, again, for those of you who watch live, thank you for being here. And for those who are listening in audio, brace yourselves because just going to get better. But Vance, thanks for keeping us company on this journey.
As always, my pleasure and my benefit.
And David, thank you very much, as always.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure as always, and pleasure with the audience. And it's great to live in these exciting times.
It is. Yeah, so much opportunity. As I say, write your own gospel, live your own myth. And of course, now my new favorite saying from Julian of Norwich is all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. So she also had visions that were very dark and powerful, and she found the other side, that freedom, that light. So much out there. Well, for everybody, thank you very much. And yes, enjoy your Freya day and have a good weekend. And we've got more Gnosis coming next week. Thank you and take care.